Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Cooking Rules with Jules. That's me. My name is Julia Pontanis, and I'm here to make your kitchen experience not only incredibly easy, but healthy as well. Today, I'm going to continue on with my paleo recipes because as some of you know, or maybe you don't know, all my friends at Atlanta Kick CrossFit, hey, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. This is going on to week 5 of a 6-week challenge, and today we're going to be making a stuffed acorn squash with ground beef. So in case you don't know what an acorn squash looks like, I already sliced it, but because, well, it's hard to slice and no one needed to see that, but it looks like a little acorn. And these tend to be a little bit on the sweeter side. So we're gonna have a nice play of sweet and savory between the acorn squash and the ground beef. Now, I am also in Mom's retro kitchen, so I'm a little tight on space. I'm gonna have a few different angles today, so let me know what you think. If you like that, or if you don't, I'll find somebody else's kitchen to cook in while I'm here in South Florida. For this recipe, of course, you're gonna need an acorn squash. I have here's one vine-ripe tomato. This is probably on the smaller side. Olive oil, of course, organic, extra virgin olive oil. I have 1 small onion that I've already started to dice, and I'll show you how to dice this one. I also have whole oregano, flat leaf parsley, smoked paprika because I love this flavor. This is one of my favorite yummy, savory, comfort food flavors to put in ground beef. Sea salt, of course, and pepper. And then for my ground beef, I have 1 pound here of ground chuck. So this actually came from Fresh Market, and they have a really great selection of ground chuck. But normally I would prefer this to be grass-fed ground beef. But anyways, enough of that. Enough. So to get this party started, I went ahead, like I said, I cut my acorn squash in half. I took the seeds and seeded it out. This is much like you would a pumpkin or any other type of squash. And I have my oven preheating on 375 degrees. So to season this up, I'm just going to give it a little olive oil love. And I like to do it this way with my hands. You don't want to use your hands, you can use a basting brush. But anyways, give it a nice little massage. And then I'm going to season it pretty heavily with salt and pepper. Now, I'm going to also make another little modification with this recipe. Typically, I would put a clove of garlic into my ground beef, so you would need that as well. However, because my mom's a little sensitive to it, I am omitting the ground garlic for today. Yes, I know. Excuse me, chopped garlic. All right, so I got nice seasoning on my acorn squash. And what I'm gonna do is put this down on a lined baking sheet. So you can either use foil or parchment paper. I prefer parchment paper just because I think it doesn't necessarily steam up the bottom. You get a good caramelization. So once my oven is preheated, these are gonna go on my pan, and then into the oven it goes for anywhere, depending on the size of your acorn squash, I would say 40 minutes to an hour, to be honest. Moving right along for my ground beef, this is a pretty simple recipe, and of course you can adjust it and add your own flavors. I already diced half of this onion, so I cut it in half, I cut it in slivers, and now I'm going to go back and cut it into little itty bitty pieces again. So 1 small onion for a pound of beef should be just right. Boop. Okay, same thing with my tomato. I cut it in half, then I cut it into 1/8, so I've got little wedges here. So now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to give a rough dice of these tomatoes, which, by the way, the tomatoes in the markets down here have been looking amazing, and I love tomatoes. Now, I know it's winter everywhere else, or fall, but here in South Florida, it's still seriously 92 degrees outside, so it feels like summertime. So these tomatoes are ripe and ready to go. All right. I get to switch camera angles now, so just bear with me. You're gonna have a little bit of a pause and we will be right back to the other side of the kitchen. Ta-da! We are now set up on the opposite side of the kitchen with our super retro flower power kitchen range here. But you wanna know what? It is consistent and this oven works better than any oven I think I've cooked with in the past few months. Anyways, I digress. Okay, while I change positions, I have this pan heating over a medium heat. I'm gonna start by throwing down my olive oil, which is of course over here. Ta-da! And put it in the bottom of my pan just to give it a nice coat. I'm also gonna turn my heat down just a bit. I feel like that might be too much. Okay, so that was probably about a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, just depending on how much you're cooking beef here. The first thing I'm gonna throw down is my onions. And I'm gonna try not to let my tomatoes get juicy in there because we don't want that, at least not yet. Give these guys a nice little coat in the olive oil. And of course I have my wooden spoon. Gotta love it. Okay, moving right along. I'm gonna go ahead and season my onions with salt and pepper and let them get a little translucent. And because I've already diced these pretty thin, I'm already making a mess, this is gonna go by relatively quick. So I'm gonna let these get until they're a little bit translucent, and then I'm going to add in my ground beef. And after I add in my ground beef, then I'm gonna start to become the spice queen. I'm gonna start to add in my salt, my pepper, my parsley, paprika, oregano, and then also while I switched positions, I also decided to add more spices. So I'm gonna put in just a smidgen of cumin to help balance out that salt savory, or the sweet and savory, excuse me, of my ground beef. Now this is basically the same formula. Like if you were going to make tacos, ground meat tacos, it would be the same thing. Fat, onions, protein, right? That's the other thing. You don't have to use ground beef. You can use ground chicken. You can use lamb. You can use, ooh, lamb would be really good in this. Somebody do that and tell me how it goes. Turkey, you could do, even if you wanted to do veggie crumbles, you could do that as well. But this is completely up to you. This is your meal. I'm just here to show you the basic steps, right? My rules. Hence the cooking rules with Jules. Get it? All right, here we go. So into my pan is gonna go my meat, which is of course across the countertop. Hang on. Guys, by the end of the year, I'm back in my own kitchen and we won't have these issues anymore. Okay, so, oops, meat goes right into the pan. I am not afraid to use my hands, but I am going to go wash them. So I'm gonna get the meat down, wash my hands, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with clean hands. My acorn squash is on a lined piece of parchment paper on a baking sheet. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in the middle rack. Not burn myself while I'm at it. And here we go. Time to get this beef brown. Okay, so I'm just breaking it up into chunks. And I'm gonna start with the salt. So now remember, as chef, you get to taste test. So make sure you have your tasting spoon out and don't double dip. COVID is still a thing. All right, here we go, salt. Again, know your palate. This is a fine grinder, so I know what that tastes like. Boom. Cumin, perfect. Should be doing everything left-handed so you can see me. That's less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. Check. Smoked paprika. I really love this stuff. Oh man, I'm gonna give this a good hefty dose. In fact, I'm not gonna sprinkle, I'm just gonna give it a pour. It's probably a good teaspoon worth. And then, cooking towel. Let's see, did I open the parsley? Yes, Parsley's open, perfect. I would use fresh parsley normally, but since Mama had dried parsley, this is what we're doing. Okay. Again, I'm just gonna go for the gusto. Ta-da! Some fresh greens inside of ground beef, always fantastic. And then of course, oregano. Not too much, because this will add to the sweetness. Oregano is has a naturally kind of sweet flavor, and so is the paprika, and I don't want to make things overly sweet with the acorn squash. Okay. This is looking fantastic. So once this gets all nice and browned, I'm going to add some pepper too. Actually, I forgot. It's probably enough. Once I start getting this browned, then I'm going to add in my tomatoes, and then I'm going to let it stew. So we're actually going to have a little bit of like a red sauce going on here. So think about like hamburger stuffed peppers. So in that type of scenario, when you have your beef and the tomato sauce, same here, but everyone here knows about my feelings on canned foods. I don't do them. If I do have anything that's preserved, I try and buy in a jar. Otherwise, I'd rather just use it fresh. No, I did not drain my tomatoes because I want to have that water, that juice, for like a sauce for my ground beef. So I'm just about getting to that point where I can add my tomatoes. This is looking really fabulous. Hopefully the lighting is okay. Hopefully you can see a little bit of what's happening here. Okay. Moving right along, here come the tomatoes. And I really want them to cook down until they're dissolved, until all you can really see is the skins left on the outside. So this is gonna simmer probably another 10 to 15 minutes. And then once my squash is done, I'm going to take it out of the oven and I'm going to stuff my acorn squash with my ground beef. And as an option, if you wanted, if you're not doing paleo, or if you are doing paleo, just make sure you have grass-fed organic cheese, right? It's not strict paleo, clearly, but make sure that you have grass-fed cheese. You could sprinkle a little grass-fed cheese on top. I would do something along the lines of something more tangy, like a feta or a goat cheese. That would be delicious, as opposed to like a dry cheese, not Parmesan, perhaps Asiago or a Romano would probably be good too. If not, you could also top this with a little bit of sliced almonds. It would be delicious. So when we come back, we'll have a finished product and it'll be time to eat. Figured I'd give you guys some close-up shots. So here is my ground beef, and it's been simmering for about 30 minutes. As you can tell, all that liquid is absorbed, and I actually have like this nice kind of like savory gravy going on in here. And then with my acorn squash, see how it started to brown up on the edges? That's exactly what we want. So thanks again for hanging out with me. Cooking Rules with Jules, or Julia Pontanis, or my friends just call me Jules. But anyways, I hope you guys are having a fantastic week so far. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you know when all of my recipes come out, which are every Wednesday right now. And hopefully next week we'll get a dessert recipe. So it's still in the development stage and I have a few tweaks, but it's paleo and it's coming to you. If you didn't like it, I need you to tell me why. I've got to get better at this somehow. Anyways, I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.